SCP-2863, the starving skeletons called Gashadokuro. I don't know exactly how that's pronounced, but I tried my best, guys. This one's by Dr. Bob. We're going to react to it today. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you like reaction videos. Subscribe to Dr. Bob because he's the animator and a great channel too. And let's get into this reaction, yo.
The young couple held hands as they walked through the forest, the only light coming
Ghost
from the
stories?
full moon which streamed down between the branches. The young woman is riveted by her friend's story. She's never been a fan of ghost stories. She scares too easily.
Oh, I love them.
But her friends insisted. But what they didn't know was that there was something else out there in the forest. Something watching them. The young woman can't help but look around, scanning the forest to see if there's anything out there watching her.
I've
But
done
it's too dark
so
to see
many
anything past
bad
the dim
stories
ring
and
of light
watched
cast by the
scary
campfire.
movies at night.
Just then,
got real
something
horny.
emerged from the forest. The couple had no idea that it was just feet behind them, matching them step for step. Slowly, it began to reach out towards them. What was it? The young woman instinctually asked. It was the Gashadokuro. The young woman screams in fear as she is grabbed from behind by a skeleton. But of course, the laughing of her friends clues her in immediately that this is not a real Gashadokuro.
Of course.
It's just her stupid friend in a mask. No one can contain their laughter.
She was freaked out,
Even the young
man.
woman has to laugh a little.
She was freaked out.
As her friend takes off his cheap skull mask, she playfully hits him in the arm. You jerk. You should have seen the look on your... The gigantic shrieking skeleton leaps from the woods and picks up the young man, shoving him straight into his mouth and consuming him. The boy crying out as his bones are snapped between its enormous jaws.
God!
Everyone screams and turns to run. But another colossal skeleton emerges from the forest, picking up two of the group, one in each hand, before smashing them together over and over, leaving nothing but a tenderized pile of flesh between its bony fingers that it then begins to devour. The young woman doesn't know what to do. She's petrified with fear, unable to move or even think. She's grabbed from behind and turns to see her friend who is telling the story. Come on, we have to go.
Yeah.
She still doesn't move. She can't tear herself away from watching the horror that's playing out in front of her.
Girl, don't look at it. Let's just go.
Forcefully pulls her into the forest behind him. As they run through the woods, they can hear the sounds of their friends being eaten by the enormous skeletons. There's nothing they can do to help them, though. All they can do is run. The two sprint as fast as they can through the thick, dark forest, jumping over fallen trees, hoping that there's solid ground on the other side. The young woman's foot catches in a root, and she falls hard to the ground.
Not good.
Her friend stops and
how
quickly
you gonna
comes
escape
back
giant
as he is helping her
skeletons
stand
anyway if
up
they're
out of the
running?
mud. They both notice something. A sound. The heavy thuds of another giant skeleton, and it's getting closer to them.
Wow.
Come on, we have to keep going.
There's a bunch of them.
With a loud shriek, a huge bony hand emerges from the forest and grabs the young man.
Oh my god.
The young woman watches as he is lifted 100 feet into the air and stuffed whole into the gargantuan skeleton's mouth. She steps slowly backwards, knowing that she will soon meet the same fate, until the earth disappears beneath her feet.
She fell.
She tumbles down the hillside, somersaulting end over end, crashing through the brush on the hillside until dropping over an embankment.
Did she make it?
The fall down the hill knocked her out, and the drop over the embankment was enough to wake her back up. Her wits come back just enough for her to roll under the embankment's ledge,
baby.
And not a moment too soon. She huddles under the ledge and watches as the two skeletons stride over her hiding place and continue on deeper into the forest.
Jesus, what a terrifying creature, man.
Steps disappear. She doesn't know what to do. Should she try to get back to the campsite and see if any of her friends are still alive? If they are, they might need her help. What if there are more of these things out there? What if they come back, looking for her? Her mind races, unsure of what to do. She has trouble thinking clearly.
I don't know what to tell you, baby.
Her ears are ringing from her tumble down the hillside, and her teeth audibly chatter in fear.
I guess
as she debates her next move, trying to make sense of the nightmare she's found herself in. She suddenly notices something. A shadow cast by the moonlight begins to grow on the ground in front of her.
She won't have to decide.
She realizes something else. It's not her teeth that are chattering. The sound is coming from somewhere else. She stands up and turns around to see a huge skull slowly rising up behind her. The giant skeleton, this one even bigger than the others, reaches out towards her. The girl closes her eyes, preparing to meet her fate as the skeleton starts to shriek. But it's a different kind of sound. She opens her eyes and is almost blinded by the intense white light on the skeleton's face.
What is going on?
It sounds like it is shrieking in pain from the light being cast on it. And she's forced to turn away and shield her eyes. As she does so, she sees the source of light. It's a man in a uniform. He looks like some sort of tactical police officer, but instead of a gun, he's holding an enormous flashlight that he's pointing at the skeleton.
Hell yeah!
More men who are dressed just the same emerge from the woods, blasting the skeleton with more light. It continues shrieking but seems helpless to do anything. She watches as the skeleton seems to lose its form, slowly disintegrating in the light.
Wow.
Until eventually, it disappears completely.
Well,
later,
it's
the
easy
young
to
woman
contain
is sitting
him,
in the back of a van with a blanket wrapped around her shoulders.
Poor baby.
One of the policemen, at least she thinks he must be a policeman,
absolutely
brings her a hot
wrecked
drink.
emotionally.
She still can't believe what she saw that night. The monstrous creatures that killed and ate her friends. It felt like it wasn't real, like she was watching a movie play out. Were those Gashadokuro? She asks. A man in a white lab coat looks up from a nearby table where he had been working on something. She thinks he must be a doctor of some kind. Yes, he tells her, or something similar to them. Maybe they inspired the myth of the Gashadokuro. Maybe the myth inspired them. I simply don't know. She asks. All my friends are dead, he interjects.
Wow.
I know this is hard for you. Getting chased by giant anomalous skeletons and watching your friends eaten alive would be tough for anyone to deal with.
Yeah.
The young woman starts to sob.
Very much so.
The weight of the moment finally hitting her. But I have some good news, he tells her. She sniffs and looks up at the doctor. Believe it or not, I've seen this thing happen a lot. And you don't have to worry, because you're not going to remember any of this. Ouch!
Wow.
The young woman cries, and looks down to see that he has jabbed her in the thigh with a syringe. She tries to push him away, but she's already feeling weak and disoriented. Nope. She sways a little before her eyes shut, and she passes out.
Wow.
The young woman wakes in the cheery morning light of her own bedroom. She yawns and stretches, the strange dream about skeletons in the forest already drifting from her mind.
Yeah.
Konnichiwa, I'm Dr. Bob, and today's file is
Dr.
a terrifying
Bob?
Anomalous entity referred to in Japan as the Gashadokuro, but known by the SCP Foundation as SCP-2863, the Starving Skeletons. SCP-2863 is not just one, but an entire population of entities that resemble gigantic human skeletons. These enormous bony creatures' size can vary, but on average they are approximately 30 meters tall. While their exact number is unknown, over 200 separate individual instances have been identified and cataloged, with each having distinctive markings, such as their bones having different types of damage or burn marks present. SCP-2863 instances are currently found exclusively in Japan, where they will appear only after sunset. It is still unknown if the skeletons are sapient, though they do appear sentient as they engage in their primary behavior of hunting down and consuming humans.
Right.
Despite their enormous size, they are capable of moving very quietly when they want to.
Really?
There have been reports from survivors of their appearance being preceded by a rattling-like sound, which may be their own teeth or giant bones hitting against each other.
Right.
Once they have caught a human,
what she heard.
they will immediately devour them, with the human's blood appearing to be absorbed directly into their bones, since they lack any digestive organs.
Right, of course.
It is unknown if they require the blood of humans for sustenance, or if their predatory behavior is motivated by something else. Monitoring and control of SCP-2863 instances was previously the responsibility of the Imperial Japanese Anomalous Matters Examination Agency. The IJA-MEA, which as the name suggests, was Imperial Japan's answer to the SCP Foundation, tasked with investigating the strange anomalies within their own borders for the benefit of the Empire.
Sure.
Several of the IJA-MEA agents who had been investigating the Gashadokuro at the end of World War II transferred to the SCP Foundation when the Anomalous Matters Examination Agency was disbanded, and continued their work on the anomaly. They also provided their original files on the anomaly, which gave the Foundation their first information on the giant anomalous skeletons. According to the IJA-MEA's translated file, Gashadokuro are created by mass death, by the concentrated suffering of hundreds. While the Gashadokuro will eventually fade, they remain for centuries after their creation, lingering until their sorrow has diffused and faded. There is no way to hasten this process.
What a crazy legend.
The IJA-MEA file also explained that while conventional weaponry is useless against the anomalous skeletons, light can be used to banish the creatures, and either natural daylight or man-made light will suffice. When exposed to light, the skeletons will start to lose their corporeal form until they fade away completely. This doesn't kill instances of SCP-2863, though. It only temporarily neutralizes them, and appearances of the same instance will often be reported the very next night. Just as the IJA-MEA had noted in their file, the SCP Foundation also made the connection between SCP-2863 and locations of mass suffering. While Imperial Japan's Anomalous Investigation Unit identified 203 instances of SCP-2863, the Foundation has since become aware of 3 others, each of which were found at sites connected to death and destruction.
I got you.
The first new instance was found near Nanjing, China, the location of an especially brutal massacre during the Second World War that may have resulted in as many as 300,000 deaths.
Wow.
It's believed that the entity first appeared in this location in 1938, just after the massacre. while the city was still under the control of Imperial Japan. This has led some to speculate that the locations where Gashadokuro appear are inherently tied to the borders of Japan as a nation and have fluctuated with geopolitical changes. The second was discovered several kilometers from Fukuoka City in Japan, a city that saw heavy firebombing by Allied forces during the war. The third was identified in 2011 in the Tohoku region of Japan, which is where the Fukushima nuclear disaster occurred. Each of these new instances appeared to bear injuries consistent with someone who suffered through the nearby tragedies, with the first showing evidence of crushed bones, the second appearing to have suffered intense burning, and the third missing teeth, which is common in cases of extreme radiation poisoning. These specific injuries add further evidence of the connection the Gashadokuro may have to human misery. The impermanent nature of SCP-2863 and their ability to manifest even after being neutralized has made long-term containment of this anomaly all but impossible. And have been classified as Keter. In the event that an instance is spotted, Mobile Task Force Omicron-3 is dispatched to the area, where they will attempt to neutralize the entity through the use of high-powered floodlights. Any civilians who are exposed to SCP-2863 and survive are given Class A amnestics, so that they can hopefully move on with their lives and forget their horrifying encounter with the starving skeletons.
Jeez, man.
Now go and watch another entry.
Can you imagine how horrified you would be if that would happen to you? Not only watching your friends die like that, but by something like that, I would be begging for the amnestics as well, man. God dang. Dr. Bob, this was a good one, guys. Make sure to subscribe to him. Subscribe to me if you like reaction videos too. Thanks so much for watching. As always, this is Zueljin signing off. We'll see you next time.